Hey friends! We're gonna try this for the third time because for some reason my big camera is failing, literally. Like the battery's fine, the card is fine, but I just talked to myself for a good 15-20 minutes and then the camera suddenly shut down with no warning, no reason at all that I could tell. And usually when that happens, it at least saves up until that point what I've recorded. Didn't happen this time, so I lost all of that footage. It's like I never actually turned on the camera. Tried a second time, same thing happened. So I'm trying now with a different camera. Let's see how this goes. I'm also really out of breath and my throat is kicking my butt because a good portion of what I had just talked about on the other camera is about how sick I've been this week. It's week 24, by the way. Week 24 update. I'm officially beginning my 6th month of pregnancy, the last month of the 2nd trimester, and it's mind-blowing how fast this has gone so far. It's also the weekend after Thanksgiving, so we've just had Thanksgiving. And I want to update you guys a little bit on how this last week has gone. So first off, like I said, I'm sick and I haven't been feeling well for about the past week, but it's been pretty tame, pretty light, especially compared to my son. My son got sick. He and I have tested for COVID a couple times and it's been negative every time. My husband actually took a COVID test more recently because he's not feeling well and his was also negative. So it's just a virus of some sort and we have no idea how we got it or where, but and Kiddo was the first to get it because if hubby had gotten it first, I'd say, oh, well, it's because you were traveling. But it was actually Kiddo first, then me, and then hubby that got it. And my sister's youngest is also sick. And they actually missed Thanksgiving with us as a result because he woke up on Thanksgiving feeling unwell. They've gone to the doctor. They tested him for COVID, for strep, a number of things. And his white blood cell count was high, but everything else was negative. So the doctor just concluded he's obviously not well. It's got to be something viral, but it's none of the things that we typically test for. So we don't know what else to tell you. So that's that. I'm probably going to test again in a little bit. I just had something to drink, so I can't test right this moment. But I'm feeling worse as opposed to feeling better. And it's been days and days and days now. So you'd think I'd be getting over it and not feeling worse. But that's not been the case. And add to that, the heartburn, the acid indigestion that I'm feeling, which is just par for the course these days. But between that and the fact that my throat was already kind of scratchy and dry and painful all night, not having a good time. And it's especially not a great day to have to re-record multiple times. But it is what it is. We're already here, so we're going to go ahead. And speaking of medical things, this last week I did have 2 doctor's appointments. So first I went to follow up with my ear, nose, and throat specialist because last week my hearing randomly went again in my left ear. The very next day, Kiddo started to feel unwell. So I thought maybe because I'm sick, my ears just went, because that has happened to me in the past. It happens to me all the time, actually, or it used to, where if I got a bad enough cold, almost certainly I was going to end up with an ear infection. But I just had an ear infection that was cleared by the doctor. The doctor told me, oh, this ear infection's gone, you're good now. So I considered for a moment it might just be because I'm getting sick, and I also considered it might be a recurrence of the infection. So I went back to the ENT. They did a hearing test on me because they weren't able to do it the first time because the infection was so bad, and I detailed that whole experience in this video up here if you guys want to check that out. But the long story short is that my hearing was 100%. So she checked my ear after that, and sure enough, the infection was back. So the alcohol and vinegar drops that she was having me do were working while I was actively using them. But she told me to use them for 10 days and stop. And it turns out that after that, once I stopped using them, I guess there was enough infection left behind that since I wasn't keeping it in check with the drops, it had a chance to kind of redo its thing. So the infection came back. So we've had no choice basically but to go ahead and start the clometrazole, I think it's called, which is an eardrop that I'm having to do for 10 days, morning and night. I'm on day 4 now, I think. And the OB cleared it. It's the medicine that the ENT originally wanted to put me on, but she was concerned because of the pregnancy, but the OB said it would be fine. So doing that, and then I'm meant to follow up with her again in a couple of weeks, and hopefully everything will be fine. However, she did already tell me everything was fine a couple weeks ago, and yet here we are again. So hopefully it'll be fine and it'll stay fine. The other doctor's appointment I had was the OB herself. We were supposed to see her like later into the month, but Thanksgiving, etc. So we ended up seeing her earlier in the week. And I asked her all of the questions that I talked about in my last video. And essentially, what it came down to, as far as the answers, was there goes the AC. The AC was quiet the whole time I was recording on the other camera, but then everything happened. So sorry guys, you're gonna get some AC in the background for this one, I guess. Her answers basically came down to all of those things are options that you have. You can do them, not do them. We can follow your lead. We can do whatever you need to do. So that's a good thing, I guess, is that it wasn't a flat out no for anything that I wanted to do. But she did say that, you know, obviously they're going to have their recommendations, and that their priority is always going to be my safety and the safety of the baby, which good, because that's also my priority. I'm trying to understand how safe or not safe the options I want are, so that I can make an educated choice about what I want to do. And I tried telling her that, but at that point I was already getting upset. That basically, because I don't want to, I'm really trying hard to not make it a situation where it's like, this is what I want, whether it's safe or not, because it could not be farther from the fact. The fact is, I want us to be as safe as possible. I also would like to do it in this manner. But if you tell me in your professional opinion that this manner that I want is not the safest thing, then that's fine. I still have time to mentally wrap my head around the fact that, like, what I want is not going to be what happens, because what I want is not the safest thing. I just don't want to find out while I'm in active labor that what I want is not going to happen because it's not safe. That's why I'm asking you now, months in advance, these are the things I want. What do you think? Right? But again, I could not be that eloquent at the moment because I was already getting upset. And she throws it at me that, you know, obviously, as far as healthiest, safest thing, right? The healthiest, safest thing would be for us to try for a VBAC, which is, again, a vaginal birth after cesarean, and you get it, right? And you manage to have a vaginal birth safely. The second best thing is a planned C-section, because then there's the least amount of trauma, both physical and mental, as possible. And she already knows that I'm dealing with a lot of birth trauma. And then the least safe option would be to have to do an unplanned, urgent, or emergent C-section, because that's obviously, stakes are higher, more can go wrong, and so on. So she said to me, because of your birth trauma, you seem to really want things to go a certain way. And I understand that, but labor is unpredictable, babies are unpredictable, stuff happens, and we have to be able to switch plans on a dime. We have to be able to, you know, to be flexible. And if you're not willing to be flexible, then the best thing might be to do a planned C-section and just remove all of those decisions and all those possibilities from the equation, because, again, the best thing would be for us to have a VBAC and have the VBAC be successful. But there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of stuff that could, you know, change on a dime. And then once we're in labor, you can't just change your mind and say, okay, give me a C-section, without it becoming an urgent thing. And what she didn't seem to understand is that, like, we're fully on the same page. That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid too. I'm just trying to understand what my options are to keep that from happening. But again, I was having a hard time being eloquent at that moment because I was just really upset. This whole past week, actually, I've been really emotional the whole pregnancy, but this last week, for some reason, I've been a mess. Like, I'm talking, I'll be on the couch watching TV, just hanging out, and suddenly I'm sobbing for 20 minutes straight, and I have no idea why. Like, as far as I can tell, nothing is triggering me into making me upset. But it's just been really easy for me to get really upset in the last week. I don't know. Hormones. What can I say? It probably doesn't help this whole, like, constant physical malaise I've been dealing with, and the tiredness. and the constant acid indigestion that I'm actually feeling right now, which I already woke up like hoarse and with my throat hurting because of the cold. And then now on top of that, I have like a whole barrel of acid just sitting here. So I guess it's not hard to think that I could be easily pushed into being really, really when I'm already physically feeling like this, but what do I know? One very cool thing that has happened in this past week though, that I got very, very lucky, and it's already happened 2 or 3 times, is that I got to feel my daughter kick from the outside for the first time. She's actually been really, really active this week, and like really, really strong kicks, strong movements. Today, not so much. Today she's been a little quiet, but this whole week she's been really, really active. And the thing is that she doesn't really respond to touch as much as she does to sound. And I can't bend that way because my husband likes to get down to like my belly level and talk to her, and she'll like start wiggling around when she hears his voice. But I can't do that, so I just happened to get really lucky that I had my hand in the right spot, and she kicked really, really hard, and I was able to feel it from the outside. And it's already happened a couple times since then, so that's been very, very cool. But yeah, that's been pretty much how this past week has gone. So I guess let's get into what little girl's doing, what I'm doing this week. Let me see if I remember how to turn off the active track on this camera so that I could eventually stand up and show you guys a bump pic. I saw my grandmother and my godfather and aunt for the first time in a long time on Thanksgiving, and everybody was just freaking out at how big my belly is. I definitely look pregnant these days. First off, baby girl is as big as, yep, the active track is being a butt. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, I was able to shut it off. Little girl is as big as a Sega Game Gear, which is pretty cool. Like, that's big, and it's something that I very much remember, like the size and heft of it. So it's easy to imagine a baby actually being that size. She's also apparently as big as a rugby ball. I'm not familiar with a rugby ball, but sure. As big as a giant chocolate bar. What is giant? By American standards? I don't know. As big as an ear of corn. I guess they mean lengthwise. And as big as Winnie the Pooh's honey pot. I prefer the Game Gear because the Game Gear, like I said, is something very concrete that I remember exactly how big it was, so it's easy for me to imagine it. Little Bean is putting on more weight, coming from its accumulating baby fat along with growing muscles, organs, and bones. Baby's auditory system is rapidly advancing, which means if she frequently hears a song now, she's likely to recognize it and feel calmed by it when she's born, which is crazy. And it's saying how her hair, her eyelashes, her eyebrows are all white right now because they've yet to acquire pigment. Potentially my belly button is now an outie. That never happened with my son, and I don't expect it to happen with my daughter, but I guess it could. Carpal tunnel syndrome. Yeah, so I've actually been experiencing that a little bit in my right hand, but that's something that I was experiencing on and off even before pregnancy, so I don't think I could really blame that on the pregnancy. So there's that. And then they keep talking, this is the second week in a row where they're talking about soothing red itchy palms. Yeah, that you could even develop red patches and itchiness on the soles of your feet, etc. I never experienced that with my son, and I'm not experiencing it now, so I have no idea what any of that might be about. Apparently it's a hormonal thing. Some other hormonal changes you might find are metallic taste in your mouth, skin tags, bigger feet, increased saliva, and vision changes, to name a few. So far, I've pretty much been spared from most, if not all, of these things. So, and then the last little thing here, 6 months of pregnancy, only 3 months left to go. Baby is about 11.5 inches long and weighs a pound. We already know she's bigger than that based on our last scan a couple weeks ago. Gaining steadily at a rate of about 6 ounces per week. That's crazy. Baby's face is formed. If you had a baby cam at 24 weeks pregnant, you'd almost be able to tell who baby will look like by now. That's so cool. They're talking about how her hair doesn't have any pigment yet, and the fetal hearing, so it's just more of what they've already said. But yeah, guys, 16 weeks left to go. Wow. That's like no time at all. And there's still so much left to do. For Black Friday, the one thing that I got, period. So I didn't get myself anything. Didn't get kiddo anything. I wasn't planning to buy at all. I typically don't shop on Black Friday. But I saw a deal come up for the Owlet sock. Just the sock, because I've heard really terrible things about the monitor. That it doesn't work right, and like they're very like fully aware of the fact that it doesn't work right, but they won't update it for whatever reason. So I got a deal on just the sock for $100 less than they typically sell for because of Black Friday. So I went ahead and I pounced on that. So that's the one big thing that we've bought baby so far. I also shared my registry on my Facebook in case anybody wanted to get a jump on it. I feel like we should have planned the baby shower by now and like started inviting people and stuff. But honestly, like, I'm so certain that nobody's gonna come. And like, I don't want to make such a big deal out of it when the thing itself is probably not going to end up being a big thing. So, you know, hopefully I'm wrong, but I'm being realistic that like probably a lot of people won't come. I probably won't invite too many people to begin with. So I feel like because so few people will likely be invited, I probably should let them know with plenty of warning so that those few people have an opportunity to make it happen. But I'm kind of slow stepping on it just because I feel like it's not really going to get anywhere or like go anywhere or even be a thing. So why put too much effort into it? You know, it just is what it is. But if it's going to happen, we got to get a move on because I'm trying to aim for like mid-January so that I'm already in my third trimester, but I'm not like way into my third trimester where it starts to be like I'm uncomfortable and I don't want to be anywhere. I had my sons when I was already in the third trimester, again, early third trimester, so the timing of that was pretty good, but it so happened that I was in my third trimester in the peak of summer in South Florida, and the location that we got, their AC broke that day, so I was very, very uncomfortable, and I'm just trying really hard to not have a repeat of that. But yeah, I guess let me show you guys the belly. Again, I'm still in my PJs, so I don't know how much y'all are going to be able to see, but I'll try my best to kind of wrap this up. Okay, so there she is. I feel like I'm bigger, but not by much. But obviously I'm big enough that family members are like, oh wow, you're pregnant, aren't you? So I mean, I guess that's something, huh? But yeah, that's been week 24. In the next week, I don't have any appointments, I don't think. We're getting into December now, which is very, very fun. But yeah, I'm thinking that it's going to be a pretty low-key week next week. Oh my gosh, I just realized right now that week 24 is the week of viability. I was talking about that last week. How I was really excited for week 24 because this is the week that little girl is now big enough, strong enough, developed enough that if I were to go into labor and have her, she stands a chance on her own, and that's such a huge, huge, huge deal. And we're here. We made it to that point. So that's obviously worth celebrating. I'm always trying to find the good and focus on the good of whatever. And that's been a little hard this week, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm feeling so physically trash. But I'm really hopeful that next time I see you guys, I'll be feeling much better and I'll have more to report. And yeah, so that's what's going on with me. I hope you guys are doing great. I know you're watching this way later, but I hope you're having a good, or I hope you had a good 2024 holiday season. And we'll chat again really, really soon. Bye.